Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Anušić. Thursday is a day of mourning at the University of Warsaw following a tragedy on its campus a day earlier. On Wednesday, a 22-year-old law student killed a female university employee with an axe and seriously wounded a university security guard who tried to intervene. The prosecutor's office will interrogate the perpetrator on Thursday. All events scheduled for the day at the University of Warsaw have been cancelled. Black flags have been flown and candles and flowers were placed in front of the entrance to the campus. Poland's Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz is hosting his Croatian counterpart Ivan Anušić in Warsaw. Anušić was welcomed with a military ceremony at the Ministry of Defense headquarters in the Polish capital on Thursday morning. The two officials are also holding bilateral talks that are expected to include topics like European security matters and Russia's war against Ukraine. Before this meeting, the two ministers shared a panel at the Defense 24 Days conference on Tuesday, where Anušić applauded Poland's defense spending. Vladimir Putin welcomed Chinese President Xi Jinping for talks at the Kremlin on the eve of celebrations in Moscow marking the 80th anniversary of the World War II victory over Nazi Germany. On Thursday morning, President Xi Jinping attended a welcome ceremony hosted by Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. The two leaders are expected to discuss the development of China-Russia relations, regional affairs, and exchange of views on global issues. After the China-Russia leaders' talks on Thursday, Xi Jinping will join other foreign leaders at a banquet meeting at the 80th anniversary of the Allied victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. President Xi Jinping's state visit to Russia will continue until Saturday. Xi's attendance is perceived as a strong display of unity between the two leaders at a time when US diplomacy under President Donald Trump has shifted global alliances. Upon his arrival in the Russian capital, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić said that he came to Moscow to fight for the Serbian nation. At the same time, the leader said his country remains on the path to further integration with the European Union.
President Aleksandar Vučić came to Moscow to attend Friday's Victory Day parade. Apart from engaging in celebrations, Vučić will also hold talks with Vladimir Putin about the future of Russian gas supply to Serbia. This will be the first meeting between the two officials since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. While in Moscow, the Serbian president accused Western leaders of a lack of understanding of the Balkan region. According to Vučić, 14% of Serbian territory has been taken to establish the state of Kosovo, which remains unrecognized by Belgrade.
The Ukrainian Air Force said early on Thursday that a Russian military aircraft launched guided bombs on the Sumy region, marking a third attack carried out during the Kremlin-sponsored ceasefire.
Elsewhere, Ukrainian authorities reported that the skies over major cities were quiet, in contrast to the repeated attacks by Russian ballistic missiles and drone strikes recorded in the past months. Russia's three-day ceasefire is intended to mark the 80th anniversary of the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. It came into effect at midnight Moscow time. President Putin is hosting his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, and other leaders in Moscow. They're due to review a military parade in the capital's Red Square on Friday.
Events will take place on Thursday to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. 80 years ago, on the 8th of May 1945, the Allies declared the war against Nazi Germany had ended. In Poland, Prime Minister Donald Tusk and other officials will take part in a series of ceremonies in Warsaw. The country lost more than 6 million citizens during the war, including about 640,000 as a result of direct warfare. In France, President Emmanuel Macron will preside over the annual ceremony at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. This afternoon, Macron will conduct a review of troops before giving a speech and laying a wreath at the Arc de Triomphe. A minute of silence will then be observed at France's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Authorities in Belarus have pardoned 42 people convicted of, and I quote, extremist offences. The move coincides with the 5th anniversary of the detention of opposition blogger and presidential hopeful Serhiy Tsikhanouski, an incident that turned his wife, Svetlana, into the biggest opposition figure in the country. While officials in Minsk decided to release 42 prisoners, some 1,200 innocent activists still remain behind bars. The move sparked comments from Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, who wrote on social media that their freedom would not be possible without international solidarity. At the same time, the leader of Belarusian opposition said she will not rest until all the remaining jailed activists are free. Her husband, Serhiy, was sentenced to 18 years in prison in 2020, which was extended by another year and a half in 2023. Since then, he has been held in strict isolation at a maximum security detention center. Right after his visit in Paris, the freshly elected German Chancellor Friedrich Merz arrived in Warsaw for talks with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The two officials discussed the current security challenges for Europe, including, first and foremost, the war in Ukraine.
After Berlin's Bundestag fiasco, the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is getting down to business. That's what brought him here to Warsaw on Wednesday night to meet with his Polish counterpart, Donald Tusk. The pair held a press conference in the Prime Minister's chancellery behind me, and this is what we heard about Polish-German relations.
The fact that on your first day in office you found time to visit both Paris and Warsaw demonstrates very clearly how important Polish-German relations are for the future of Europe and thus for the future of the world, how important a strong Europe is. And Europe will only be strong if we take joint responsibility for it. There is huge potential in the close partnership between Poland and Germany. Germany and Poland are two large members of the European Union. Poland is our big neighbor to the east. And that is why we have reached a very clear agreement that we want to deepen and expand this cooperation between our two countries in the coming years.
Poland is one of Merz's first pit stops since he became the Chancellor of Germany, visiting a country that has historically had a tested and strained relationship with Germany. In fact, the latest issues have been around migration and Germany setting up border controls in the Schengen zone. So Donald Tusk made his feelings clear.
We have talked about what is a sore point for all countries in the European Union, including Germany and Poland, namely the migration issue. We have already talked about it more than once. This topic evokes emotions, legitimate emotions, fears, and also directly affects the political fate not only of Germany and Poland, but of Europe as a whole.
The war in Ukraine is also top of Friedrich Merz's mind. Earlier, he was in Paris at the Élysée Palace, sitting down with French President Emmanuel Macron, and it was there where he struck a cautious tone about what security guarantees in Ukraine could look like.
Until there is a permanent ceasefire and such an agreement with Russia, we cannot say anything about the extent of the security guarantees we are giving Ukraine, because we simply do not yet know the conditions.
Merz's shuttle diplomacy comes at a pivotal time, not just because of the war in Ukraine, but also due to America straying from Europe and, of course, Donald Trump's tariff thunder. Friedrich Merz and Donald Trump are set to have their first official phone call on Thursday, as Merz tries to convince Europe and the world that Germany is back. In Warsaw for TVP World, I'm Aaron Darman.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky reiterated his country's diplomatic proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. In his evening address, Zelensky went on to note that so far Russia has offered no response except continued aggression. Earlier on, Moscow announced a 3-day unilateral truce from midnight on the 8th of May to midnight on the 11th, although Russia's previous track record casts doubt on whether this truce would be genuine.
Ukraine's proposal to halt strikes and cease fire for at least 30 days remains on the table. We are not withdrawing this proposal, which could give diplomacy a chance. But from Russia, the world sees no response other than new strikes. This makes it absolutely clear to everyone who is the source of this war. Russia must end its aggression. It will have to do so. It's only a matter of time. War is a loss for everyone, including the aggressor. Sanctions on Russia for this war will be strengthened, and they will be felt. The world's justice system will also do its job. Slowly, perhaps, but what matters is that it's inevitable.
The largest and most diverse conclave in history is set to resume for day 2 of voting. The cardinals started the process of choosing the new leader of the Catholic Church on Wednesday, but the first ballot was inconclusive. No pope in modern times has been elected in the first ballot, but given recent history, a final result is possible from day 2 onwards. So far, there are no clear favourites, although Italian Pietro Parolin and Filipino Luis Antonio Tagle are considered frontrunners in the race for the papacy. If it becomes obvious that neither can obtain a 2/3 majority, votes are expected to shift to other candidates. Voting is permitted 4 times a day, twice in the morning and twice in the evening. During the entire process, cardinals are isolated from the outside world and sworn to secrecy. Their phones and computers have been confiscated, and the red-hatted church officials are shuttled between the Sistine Chapel, where they vote, and 2 Vatican guest houses, where they sleep and dine. India and Pakistan have reportedly exchanged small arms fire across the shared border in Kashmir.
It comes after India posted video on X showing strikes on what it says were terrorist camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Islamabad has rejected Indian allegations it had terrorist camps on its territory and pledged to respond to the Indian strikes, which it said killed at least 31 civilians. A Pakistan military spokesman on Thursday said 12 drones have been destroyed in various locations over the past 2 days, including near Karachi. The escalation in violence began after gunmen opened fire in the Bazaran Valley, a popular tourist attraction in Indian Kashmir's Pulhalgam area, on April 22nd, killing 26 people and wounding several others.
Tens of thousands of people took part in a rally in Istanbul to support the city's jailed mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu. The demonstration was one of the largest in recent weeks and came just as the main opposition party sought to relaunch its efforts to free İmamoğlu, who was detained in March.
The protest was held outside Istanbul University, which had stripped İmamoğlu of his degree the day before his arrest and was spearheaded by the leader of the Republican People's Party, Özgür Özel, who called it a struggle for democracy and freedom. During the protest, Özel went on to announce that a petition demanding the release of İmamoğlu and immediate elections had secured nearly 15 million signatures nationwide. The mayor of Istanbul was detained on March 19th on corruption charges, which İmamoğlu strongly denies. The politician is seen as the biggest rival to the long-term president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. İmamoğlu's arrest could stop him from taking part in presidential elections in 2028.
US President Donald Trump is expected to announce a major trade deal between the United States and the United Kingdom. Writing on social media, Trump said he will hold a press conference in the Oval Office about, and I quote, a major trade deal between or with representatives of a big and highly respected country.
Trump did not offer more details, but said the announcement will be the first of many. Following the news, the pound sterling jumped against the dollar by 0.5%, while FTSE rose by 0.7%. Expanding on the news, an unnamed British official said the UK-US trade deal would likely include lower tariff quotas on steel and the automotive industry. Moreover, London and Washington officials are discussing the 100% tariff on all movies produced outside the United States. This would be the second deal in a week for the UK after London clinched a free trade agreement with India.
And with this, we conclude this news bulletin. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.